All right, so we're going to be talking about today in this video is charting a text. And so what I have here is a typical graphic that you would use to chart a text, right? Let's just quickly talk through the features. You have a column here for paragraphs, and we're going to talk about what you put there. You have a column here for what the author is saying. It says right under there on this particular form, fact-finding, but this is what you would say in terms of a paraphrase or a summary. So it would simply be repeating in your own words what's already on the text. And then the last column here, what is the author doing? And this is an analysis evaluation. It's like you step back, you take a step back, and you try to translate or evaluate, okay, in these words or in these paragraphs, this is what the author is intending or trying to accomplish. And so these are the kind of our groundwork here, how we're going to work across each of these sections of a text. All right, so today we're going to be using a pretty famous piece, The World House by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And as we go into this, right, our first goal here is to start what's called blocking. Some people call it blocking, some people call it chunking. But whenever you're reading any sort of piece of literature or a speech or prose, whatever you're reading, you can kind of connect paragraphs together that deal with kind of the same aspect of an issue, facet of an issue. They're basically focusing on one part before there's movement in the text, before the author kind of takes the next step in the argument or the purpose that we're trying to do. So in this particular case, right, we're going to start reading here. And when we sense a transition is when we actually put a bracket there, and that's the blocking or the chunking of the text together. And so that's kind of important. So let's quickly go through these first couple paragraphs. Some years ago, a famous novelist died. Among his papers was found a list of suggested plots for future stories, the most prominently underscored being this one. A widely separated family inherits a house in which they have to live together. So in this case, right, he's trying to connect this idea from another author to what he is going to be using that image for. This is the great new problem of mankind. We have inherited a large house, a great world house, in which we have to live together. Black and white, Easterner and Westerner, Gentile and Jew, Catholic and Protestant, Muslim and Hindu, a family unduly separated in ideas, culture, and interest, who, because we can never again live apart, must somehow learn to live with each other in peace. However deeply American Negroes are caught in the struggle to be at last at home in our homeland of the United States, we cannot ignore the larger world house in which we are also dwellers. Equality with whites will not solve the problems of either whites or Negroes if it means equality in a world society stricken by poverty and in a universe doomed to extinction by war. So those two paragraphs, right, are kind of explaining this idea of a world house. Paragraph 3, we need to see if that continues on in the stream or it goes into another idea. All inhabitants of the globe are now neighbors. Kind of a concluding evaluative sentence there. This worldwide neighborhood has been brought into being as a result of the modern scientific and technological revolutions. All right, so he is moving now into this idea of scientific and technological breakthroughs or advancements. So in terms of my blocking or chunking, right, I'm going to chunk 1 and 2 together. That'll be my first block or chunk. And so what I want to do then, right, is go to my charting, and I'm going to put in here paragraphs 1 and 2. And so in a nutshell, right, in a basic summary, what is this author saying? And I would put in my own words, he's probably saying something like all nationalities and countries, perhaps, are living in one world house. Okay. They have to learn to live in peace. Okay. And then that kind of summarized paragraph 1. Gains in American civil rights must also fit into worldwide civil rights. Okay, so the key here though is I didn't add anything to the text. I didn't interpret it. I didn't put my own ideas into it. I didn't evaluate it. So is everything I said here showing up in this actual text, right? So we look here, nationalities and countries living in a world house. We have to learn to live in peace. American civil rights are part of worldwide rights, right? Okay, so this first paragraph, we're in a great world house. We have to live together, and it goes through all of these. Eastern and Westerner, that's pretty general. The Western world and the Eastern world. We're separated in ideas, culture, and interest, and we live with each other in peace. That's my translation. Right? That's perfect. Second paragraph, I didn't neglect the second paragraph in my charting, right? Just because I filled up part of the box doesn't mean I'm done. If I said 1 and 2 are the two paragraphs that hang together here, then of course I want to make sure that I address paragraph 2 as well. And in that case, it says, however deeply American Negroes are caught in the struggle, we cannot ignore the larger world house. So we don't want to be focused on just us. We want to see the bigger picture. And so did I capture that here? All right, gains in American civil rights must also fit into worldwide. So I accomplished what I wanted to do. Now this gets a little bit trickier. What is the author doing? And so I want to evaluate, well, what's happening here? What is Martin Luther King here trying to accomplish in these two paragraphs? So it kind of takes a step back. And a lot of people will look at a list of rhetorically active verbs. They're not hard to find. If you Google rhetorically active verbs, you can find a ton of options, right? But I particularly am going to be using this list today. And what a rhetorically active verb is just what it sounds like, right? It's a word or verb, an action word that kind of helps you hone in on rhetorical movement. In other words, what a speaker's trying to do or a writer's trying to do in their work. So you see like asserting, allowing, arguing, claiming, countering, defining, providing. So there's all these kind of ing words here. And so when I look into this passage here, I'm going to start off with this word introducing. Because what is he doing here in the first two paragraphs? Well, first of all, he's introducing a metaphor. Right? So I'm going to go into my, and then I'm going to start with my rhetorically active verb, introducing, okay, the metaphor of a world house that all humanity must live in. And I've kind of captured the first paragraph there, but again, I'm not going to neglect the second paragraph as well. And so now I want to figure out, okay, so what's he doing in the second part? The thing to note is that there's multiple choices that would work. So not just one word is the only word that could be. So I could say proposing, because the second one is like he's proposing that the American struggle is part of a bigger picture. I could use proposing. I could say clarifying. He could be claiming. So there's a lot of right words, but there are wrong words as well. In the second paragraph, he's not lamenting, okay? He's not refining necessarily. But so I'm going to pick one of these that kind of works. Why don't we just say posing? We'll just start off with that. That might as well work, okay? So he's posing the concept that the American civil rights struggle is part of a larger world struggle that must both be addressed. Okay? So hopefully you can see the difference between the saying, which is just the summary, and then the doing, which is more evaluative. All right? So let's kind of look at one more. Continuing on, we started here, he's talking about scientific advancements in paragraph 3. The worldwide neighborhood has been brought into being as a result of the modern scientific and technological revolutions. The world of today is vastly different from the world of just 100 years ago. A century ago, Thomas Edison had not yet invented the incandescent lamp to bring light to many dark places of the earth. The Wright brothers had not yet invented that fascinating mechanical bird that would spread its gigantic wings across the skies and soon dwarf distance and place, time in the service of man. Einstein had not yet challenged an axiom, and the theory of relativity had not yet been posited. Human beings, searching a century ago as now for better understanding, had no television, no radios, no telephones, no motion picture. So we're continuing on of this advancement, scientific, medical, technological advancement or breakthroughs that humanity has made over the last 100 years. Medical science had not yet discovered the wonder drugs to end many dread plagues and diseases. 100 years ago, military men had not developed the terrifying weapons of warfare that we now know today. Not the bomber and airborne fortress raining down on death, nor napalm, that burner of all things and flesh in its path. A century ago, there were no skyscraping buildings to kiss the stars and no gargantuan bridges to span the waters. Science had not yet peered into the unfathomable ranges of interstellar space, nor had it penetrated oceanic depths. All these new inventions, these new ideas, these sometimes fascinating and sometimes frightening developments came later. Most of them have come within the past 60 years, sometimes with agonizing slowness, more characteristically with bewildering speed, but always with enormous significance for our future. So far, right, both of these have to do with progress. We're going to go to that point. 5. The years ahead will see a continuation of the same dramatic developments. Physical science will carve new highways through the stratosphere. In a few years, astronauts and cosmonauts will probably walk comfortably across uncertain pathways of the moon. In 2 or 3 years, it will be possible, because of the new supersonic jets, to fly from New York to London in 1.5 hours. In the years ahead, medical science will greatly prolong the lives of men by finding a cure for cancer and deadly heart ailments. Automation and cybernation will make it possible for working people to have undreamed amounts of leisure time. All this is a dazzling picture of the furniture, the workshop, the spacious rooms, the new decorations, the architectural pattern of the large world house in which we are living. So paragraph 5 again is still talking about advancement. It's looking to the future, but it's still scientific technological advancement. And then kind of a concluding idea here that all of these advancements are pictures or decorations, furniture, parts of the world house that the whole globe is living in. Does 6 still talk about science and technological advancements is my question before I know what I want to block or chunk. Along with the scientific and technological revolution, we've also witnessed a worldwide freedom revolution. So now he's moving into a different idea. Freedom is less concrete, right? In these examples, he's like rockets and medicine, and he's giving concrete stuff. But freedom is more abstract. So he's going into a different kind of concept, parallel perhaps, but not in the same vein. So we have here 3 through 5 then becomes our next, right? 3 through 5 becomes our next blocking or chunking on our chart. All right, so again, I need to summarize what's being said there. There have been tremendous advancements in the past 100 years, okay? In now specifically science and technology, okay? And now it was interesting, right? He gave some positive things, things that were beneficial, but he also talked about war and bombs and napalm and stuff. So both for good and for destruction, we will see more progress in the years ahead. All right, so again, I'm trying to summarize 3 paragraphs in 1 or 2 sentences in this charting, but I don't want to neglect a paragraph because then my charting is incomplete. Next part, I need to find, again, some great rhetorically active verbs. And so I could say a couple would work, right? He is, which ones would work? Showing that, he is providing an overview, noting that. So there's a few that I could use. Bringing up. Okay, so let's just pick one here. And discussing. Let's use discussing. So he's discussing scientific and technological growth and advancement over the last, I could say highlighting too, right? Last 100 years, okay? And then he's probably proposing, maybe we'll just say proposing. Proposing speculating that this growth, this advancement will continue. Okay, so there's my doing for that. So that's the idea. As you go through and you block, chunk, bracket paragraphs that go together, you can then summarize, and then you go on into what those passages were accomplishing. So what's the point, or what's useful about charting? Well, number one, it can help us determine all sorts of things about a piece. We can see the movement of the argument. We can see the shifts in tone as an author progresses through their narrative or through their persuasive piece. You can use if you have to write a précis, for instance, the charting is really helpful in writing the précis because it helps you find the main claim, it helps you find the subclaims, it helps you identify the evidence, because sometimes you're going to say listing evidence in terms of what the author's doing. So it helps you write a précis. And then anytime you need to maybe use a piece in your own persuasive essay or argument, this is kind of broken down how this text was put together. It really helps you get to the nuts and bolts of a piece of writing or a speech that you can then use for all kinds of things when it comes to academic writing. All right, so hopefully that helps you understand how to use a charting. And now you can find charting anywhere or make your own. It's just 3 columns and rows. Super simple to create, but also very, very useful whenever you approach a text. All right, so take care until next time. Really appreciate you watching this video. It would be amazing. You're a fabulous person if you could subscribe to the channel. Here's a bunch of other videos that are writing workshops to help you deal with all kinds of facets of writing and growth as a writer. And then a couple other playlists that you might just find amusing or interesting or even helpful. Thank you so much. Until next time.